I remember the day it all started like it was etched into my bones. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, the kind that clings to your skin after a summer rain. I was 18, barely out of high school, living in that small town nestled at the foot of the Appalachian Mountains. My name is Ella, and back then, I thought I knew what freedom tasted like. It was in stolen kisses, with Tommy behind the old barn, the way his hands trembled when they touched my waist, like I was something fragile and precious. We were young, foolish, convinced that love could conquer anything. But love doesn't pay bills, and it sure as hell doesn't hide a growing belly from a father like mine. Dad was a stern man, forged in the fires of hard labor and harder religion. He ran the family farm with an iron fist, quoting Bible verses like they were law. Mom had passed when I was little, leaving me to navigate his world alone. When I told him about the pregnancy, his face turned to stone. No yelling, no tears, just a cold, calculating silence that chilled me more than any winter wind. "You've shamed us," he said finally, his voice low and steady. "Shamed the family name." I begged him to understand, to let me keep the baby, to help me figure it out. But he had other plans. Punishment, he called it. Redemption through suffering. The next morning, he loaded me into the truck with nothing but a small bag of clothes and a Bible. We drove up the winding mountain roads, higher than I'd ever been, where the trees swallowed the sky and the world below faded into a distant memory. He didn't speak the whole way, just gripped the wheel until his knuckles went white. We stopped at a clearing, where a weathered cabin stood like a sentinel against the wilderness. Smoke curled from the chimney, and there he was, the mountain man. His name was Silas, or so Dad said, tall as an oak, with a beard that hid half his face and eyes like storm clouds. He looked like he'd been carved from the mountain itself, rough and unyielding. Dad shook his hand, exchanged a few words I couldn't hear, and then turned to me. "This is your new home, Ella. Silas will teach you discipline. You'll work the land. Bear your child here, away from prying eyes. When you've learned your lesson, maybe you'll come back." I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. But he just got back in the truck and drove away, dust kicking up behind him like a final goodbye. I was left there, pregnant and terrified, with a stranger who smelled of wood smoke and solitude. Silas didn't say much at first. He showed me inside the cabin, a single room with a bed in the corner, a wood stove, and shelves lined with jars of preserved food. No electricity, no running water beyond a pump outside. "You'll earn your keep," he grunted, pointing to a stack of firewood that needed chopping. I stared at him, my hands protectively over my belly. "I'm not your slave," I spat, fear making my voice sharp. He laughed, a deep rumble that echoed off the walls. "Girl, up here, we're all slaves to the mountain. Now get to work." The days blurred into a rhythm of survival. Mornings started with fetching water from the stream, my back aching from the weight of the buckets. Silas taught me to chop wood, his calloused hands guiding mine on the axe until I could swing it without blistering. He wasn't gentle, but he wasn't cruel, not at first. He'd watch me with those piercing eyes, like he was sizing up a wild animal. Evenings, we'd sit by the fire, and he'd tell stories of the mountain ghosts in the mist, bears that roamed like kings, and men who'd lost everything to the wild. I hated him then, saw him as my jailer, but there was something in his voice, a loneliness that mirrored my own. As my belly grew, so did the isolation. No phones, no roads out without a long hike I couldn't manage. The baby kicked like a reminder of my mistakes, and I'd cry myself to sleep, whispering apologies to the life inside me. Silas noticed, though he pretended not to. One night, a storm raged outside, thunder shaking the cabin. I was scared, alone in my corner bed. He came over, sat on the edge, and placed a hand on my shoulder. "It'll pass," he said softly. "Storms always do." It was the first kindness, and it cracked something in me. Over time, I learned his story. Silas had been married once, to a woman named Clara who'd died in childbirth years ago. Up here where no doctor could reach, the mountain had taken her, and had never left since, punishing himself in solitude. Your father thought I'd break you, he admitted one evening, as we shared venison stew. But maybe we're both broken already. I looked at him differently after that. His roughness was a shield, hiding a man who'd loved and lost deeply. The work hardened me. I planted a garden, weeding rows of potatoes and beans under the sun. Silas showed me how to track deer, set traps for rabbits. My hands grew tough. My body adapted to the altitude. And as the months passed, the anger at Dad faded into a dull ache. The baby was coming, and Silas prepared everything: clean linens, boiled water, herbs for pain. When labor hit, it was agony, waves of pain that made me scream into the night. He was there, steady as a rock, coaching me through it. Push, Ella. You've got the strength of the mountain in you now. The baby came at dawn, a girl, tiny and perfect, with Tommy's eyes and my dark hair. I named her Lily, after the wildflowers that bloomed in the spring meadows. Silas held her like she was glass, his rough hands gentle for the first time. She's beautiful, he whispered, and I saw tears in his eyes. In that moment, something shifted between us. He wasn't just my captor anymore, he was my partner in this wild life. But the mountain isn't kind to the weak. Winter came early that year, snow piling high against the cabin door. Food was scarce, we'd hunted what we could, but a blizzard trapped us inside for days. Lily cried constantly, her little body fighting the cold. I nursed her by the fire, wrapped in every blanket we had. Silas ventured out when the winds died, bringing back a deer head tracked through the drifts. We'll make it, he promised, but his voice held doubt. One night, fever gripped Lily. She burned hot, her cries weak. I panicked, begging Silas to take us down the mountain, to a doctor. It's too dangerous, he said. But seeing my desperation, he relented. We bundled up, him carrying Lily in a sling against his chest, me following in his footprints through the snow. The trek was hell, wind whipping like knives, my legs numb. Hours passed, and just as the town lights appeared in the distance, Silas slipped on ice, twisting his ankle. He handed Lily to me. Go on without me. Get her help. I refused, helping him limp the rest of the way. At the hospital, doctors swarmed, diagnosing pneumonia in Lily. She survived, barely. Dad was there too, someone had called him. He looked at me, at Silas leaning on a crutch, and for the first time, I saw regret in his eyes. I was wrong, he admitted later, in the sterile waiting room. I thought I was saving you, but I almost lost you both. Silas and I didn't go back to the mountain right away. We stayed in town while he healed, and something bloomed between us slow, like spring after a harsh winter. He was gruff, but kind in ways Tommy never was. Tommy had moved on, I learned, with some other girl. But Silas, he saw me, the real me, forged in fire and isolation. Eventually, we returned to the cabin, but on our terms. Dad helped build an addition, even installed a generator. Lily grew strong, toddling through the woods, learning the mountain's secrets from her Uncle Silas, though we both knew he was more than that. We married quietly one summer, under the pines, with Dad's blessing. It wasn't the life I planned, but it was mine, raw, real, and full of a love that survived the storm. Years passed, and Lily asked about her real father. I told her the truth, gently. Tommy was a chapter, but Silas was the story. The mountain taught me resilience, forgiveness, and that sometimes punishment leads to unexpected grace. Now, as I sit on the porch watching Lily play, Silas by my side, I know him homes, not because I was given away, but because I found my way back to myself, to love, to life. But let's rewind a bit, because the story doesn't end there. After the wedding, life settled into a peaceful routine, but the mountain always has its challenges. One fell. A fire swept through the lower slopes, threatening our homes. Sealers and I fought it side by side, digging fire breaks and soaking the ground with water from the stream. Dad came up with neighbors, forming a chain to pass buckets. We saved the cabin, but lost the garden. It was a reminder that nothing up here is permanent. Lily started school down in town, bussed in every morning. She thrived, making friends, but always eager to return to the woods. Sealers taught her to whittle wood, carve little animals that she treasured. I worried she'd resent the isolation, but she loved it, the freedom, the stars unpolluted by city lights. As for Dad, he softened with age. He'd visit often, bringing supplies and stories from town. I was a fool, he'd say, bouncing Lily on his knee. But look what came of it. Forgiveness didn't come easy, but it came. One day, Tommy showed up at the cabin door. He'd heard about Lily, wanted to see her. My heart raced. Old wounds reopening. Sealers stood behind me, silent but supportive. I let Tommy in, introduced him as an old friend. Lily was curious, but distant. Tommy apologized, said he'd messed up. I nodded, but felt nothing, no anger, no love. He left, and that chapter closed for good. Sealers and I had more children, 2 boys, sturdy like their father. The cabin grew crowded, alive with laughter and chaos. I started writing, journaling my experiences, turning them into stories shared around the fire. Maybe one day, I'll publish them, show the world the beauty in broken paths. The mountain man who was my punishment became my salvation. In his arms, I found strength I never knew I had. And as the sun sets over the peaks, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I whisper thanks to fate, to hardship, to the wild heart that beats in us all. But life has a way of circling back. When Lily turned 18, she fell in love with a boy from town. Much like I had, history whispered warnings, but I didn't interfere. Instead, I talked to her openly, shared my story without shame. She listened, eyes wide, and promised to be careful. Sealers watched over her like a hawk, but trusted her spirit. One winter, Dad passed peacefully in his sleep. We buried him on the farm, under the oak tree where Mom rested. It was a full circle pain to healing, loss to legacy. Now, with grey in Silas' beard and lines on my face, we sit together, watching our grandchildren play. The mountain stands eternal, a witness to our tale. I was given away as punishment, but I gained a world. And in the quiet moments, I know sometimes, the harshest paths lead to the sweetest views. Let's delve deeper into those early days, because the transformation didn't happen overnight. When I first arrived, the cabin felt like a prison. The walls were rough-hewn logs, chinked with mud that flaked in the dry air. Sealers slept on a pallet by the fire, giving me the bed, a lumpy mattress stuffed with straw. Nights were the worst, the silence amplified every creak, every howl from the woods. I'd lie there, hand on my belly, wondering if the baby could feel my fear. Silas' routine was unyielding. Up at dawn, tending the animals, a few goats and chickens in a makeshift pen. I'd milk the goats, my fingers clumsy at first, earning scolds when I spilled. Waste not, he'd say, his voice gruff but patient. Lunch was simple bread baked in the stove, cheese from the goats, wild berries I'd foraged. Afternoons meant mending clothes or preserving food, pickling vegetables in brine, drying meat over the fire. He had books, surprisingly, tattered volumes on survival, poetry from Emerson, even a Bible worn from use. One evening, as rain pattered on the tin roof, he read aloud from Walden, "To live deliberately." He quoted, his eyes distant, I scoffed at first, but listened. It planted seeds in my mind that this life, harsh as it was, had purpose. My body changed with the pregnancy. Swollen feet, back pains that kept me up. Sealers noticed, brewing teas from willow bark for relief. Clara used this. Head muttered, avoiding my gaze. It was the first mention of his wife, and I pressed for more. Over time, pieces came out they'd come to the mountain for peace, away from city's noise. She died giving birth to a stillborn son. He blamed himself for not getting help sooner. That vulnerability drew me in. I shared my own story, Tommy's promises. The thrill of first love. The shock of 2 pink lines on a test. Sealers didn't judge, he nodded. Said, we all stumble. It was the beginning of trust. When spring came, the mountain bloomed. Wildflowers carpeted the meadows. And Sealers took me hiking, showing hidden waterfalls and caves. Nature heals, he said. And I felt it, the weight lifting. Breath coming easier. Labor was a blur of pain and determination. Sealers was calm. Boiling water. Timing contractions. Breathe. Zella. In and out. When Lily cried her first cry, relief washed over us. He cut the cord with steady hands, wrapped her in a clean cloth. Holding her, I wept not from sorrow, but joy. Postpartum days were tender. Sealers cooked, cleaned, let me rest. Head rock Lily when she fussed, humming old folk tunes. I watched him, heart softening. One night, as stars twinkled through the window, I reached for his hand. Thank you, I whispered. He squeezed back. And that was our start. The blizzard that followed tested us. Snowdrifts higher than my waist. Wind howling like banshees. We rationed food. Burned wood sparingly. Lily's fever spiked on the 3rd day, hot forehead. Ragged breaths. Panic clawed at me. We have to go, I insisted. Sealers packed supplies. Slung a rifle over his shoulder. The descent was perilous, slipping on ice. Fighting hypothermia. His ankle snap echoed. But he pushed on until we reached the road. Hospital lights were blinding after months in dimness. Doctors hooked Lily to machines. Antibiotics flowing. She pulled through. And in those hours, I realized Sealers was family. Recovery brought changes. Dad visited. Apologetic. Offering help. Sealers and I talked long into nights. Deciding to stay but modernize solar panels. A better path down. Our love grew quietly. Stolen glances over chores. Brushes of hands. One evening, by the stream, he kissed me tentative. Then deep. I don't deserve you, he murmured. But I want you. I chose him. Freely. Lily's childhood was idyllic. She climbed trees. Swam in creeks. Learned constellations from Sealers. Our sons came later, Jacob and Elias. Named for strength. Challenges persisted, a bear raiding our stores. Floods washing out trails. But we faced them together. Now, reflecting, I see the irony. Dad's punishment birthed my freedom. The mountain man became my anchor. Life's not a fairy tale, but ours is real, flawed. Fierce. Forever. To make it a full hour, let's expand on daily life. Mornings, rooster crowing. Sealers stoking the fire. ID grind corn for bread. The rhythm soothing. Breakfast eggs. Fresh milk. Honey from wild hives he harvested. Afternoons gardening. ID kneel in dirt. Planting seeds. Watching sprouts emerge like hope. Sealers built a greenhouse from scavenged glass. Extending our season. Evening stories. Sealers spun yarns of pioneers. I added my twists. Lily listened wide-eyed. Imagining adventures. Seasons cycled, summer hikes. Fall hunts. Winter introspection. Spring renewal. Conflicts arose, arguments over risks. Like when Sealers hunted alone in fog. But we resolved with talks. Understanding. Family visits, dad bringing toys for kids. Sharing meals. Healing bonds. Personal growth. I took up painting, capturing mountain vistas on canvas from bark. Sealers whittled frames. Lily's teen years rebellious streaks, but grounded by our lives. She left for college, studying environmental science, returning often. Our legacy grandkids learning the old ways, blending with news. In the end, it's a story of redemption. From given away to choosing my path. The mountain whispers secrets, and I've learned to listen. The day my father drove me up that winding dirt road, I thought my life was over. I was 19, scared out of my mind, with a secret growing inside me that I couldn't hide anymore. The truck bumped over roots and rocks, and I clutched my small bag in my lap, tears blurring the view of the dense forest closing in around us. Dad hadn't spoken a word since we left the house, his jaw set like stone, hands gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. ID begged him not to do this, told him it was a mistake with my boyfriend from town, that we could figure it out together. But in our strict family, mistakes like mine weren't forgiven, they were punished. You've shamed us all, Head said the night before, his voice low and final. This will teach you responsibility. And just like that, he was handing me over to a stranger, a mountain man named Harlan who'd lived alone up here for years. It was like something out of an old folktale. But this was real. And it was happening to me. When we pulled up to the cabin, it looked like it had grown out of the earth itself, logs weathered grey. A stone chimney puffing smoke into the crisp air. Harlan stood on the porch, tall and broad-shouldered, with a beard that reached his chest and eyes as dark as the shadows under the pines. He didn't smile, just nodded at my father like they'd made some silent deal. Dad got out, shook his hand, and muttered something about straightening her out. Then he turned to me, still in the truck. Get out, Sarah. This is your home now. Work hard. Have that baby here. And maybe one day you'll earn your way back. I sobbed, pleading. But he just climbed back in and drove away, the engine fading into the distance, until all I could hear was the wind rustling the leaves. Harlan watched me for a moment, then grunted, "Come inside. There's work to be done." The cabin was sparse. One room with a bed in the corner, a wood stove, and shelves of canned goods and tools. No electricity, no plumbing, just an outhouse and a pump for water. Harlan showed me where I'd sleep, a pallet on the floor near the fire, and handed me an apron. "You'll cook, clean, tend the garden, earn your keep." His voice was rough, like gravel, but not unkind. I wiped my eyes and nodded, too numb to argue. That first night, I lay there staring at the ceiling beams, my hand on my belly, feeling the tiny flutters. How had it come to this? I'd been a good girl, mostly top of my class, dreaming of college. But one night of passion with Jake, and everything shattered. Now I was here, pregnant and alone with a man I didn't know, miles from anyone. The days started early. Harlan woke before dawn, chopping wood or checking traps, and expected me up too. I'd fetch water from the stream, my back aching as my belly grew, then start breakfast oatmeal from stores or eggs from the few chickens he kept. He didn't talk much at first, just gave orders: weed the vegetable patch, mend clothes, preserve berries. My hands blistered from the hoe, my feet swelled from standing, but complaining got me nowhere. Life up here ain't easy, he'd say, but it makes you strong. I hated him those first weeks, saw him as my jailer, a brute enforcing my father's will. But as the sun climbed higher each day, I noticed things: the way he left wildflowers on the table sometimes, or how he'd carve little wooden figures while sitting by the fire at night: a deer, a bird, silent company. One evening, as thunder rolled in from the peaks, I broke down. The storm matched the one inside me: fear for the baby, anger at Dad, loneliness that clawed at my chest. Harlan found me crying over the stew pot. He didn't hug me or anything soft like that. He just sat across the table and said, "Tell me," haltingly, I did the whole story. Jake's promises, the test, Dad's rage. He listened without interrupting, then shared his own. Had been married once, to a woman who'd run off with a logger, leaving him heartbroken and bitter. Mountain takes what it wants, he muttered, but it gives back too, if you let it. It was the first crack in his armor, and something in me softened. Maybe he wasn't the monster I'd imagined. As summer turned to fall, my body changed more. The baby kicked like a wild thing, and mornings brought nausea that left me weak. Harlan adapted without a word, bringing me ginger root head foraged for tea, showing me easier ways to carry loads. We fell into a rhythm: mornings in the garden, afternoons foraging for mushrooms or nuts, evenings by the fire where He'd teach me survival skills. How to read animal tracks, start a fire with flint, navigate by stars. You gotta know these things, He'd say. For when the world's against you. I started to see the beauty in it, the golden leaves carpeting the ground, the crisp air that cleared my head. The isolation that once terrified me now felt like a shield, away from judging eyes in town. But not everything was peaceful. One day, a bear raided our stores, scattering cans and tearing into the smokehouse. Harlan grabbed his rifle, and we tracked it together through the woods. My heart pounded, but he was calm, teaching me to move quietly. We didn't kill it, just scared it off with noise. That night, as we repaired the damage, he looked at me differently. You're tougher than you think, girl. It was the first compliment, and it warmed me more than the fire. Winter crept in slow, then hit hard. Snow blanketed everything, drifts piling against the cabin door. We were trapped inside for days at a time. The world reduced to that one room. Food rations stretched thin, dried meat, root vegetables, what we'd preserved. The cold seeped through cracks, and I'd huddle under blankets, worrying about the baby. Harlan noticed my shivers, added more logs to the stove, even shared his coat. Nights grew longer, and so did our talks. He'd tell stories of his youth, roaming these hills as a boy, dreaming of adventure. I'd share mine: school dances, friends' laughter, the life I'd lost. One stormy night, as wind howled like ghosts, he reached across and took my hand. You ain't alone anymore. It was simple, but it sparked something, a warmth that spread through me, chasing away the chill. The baby came in the dead of winter, pain ripping through me like nothing I'd known. I screamed into the night, gripping the bed frame as contractions hit. Harlan was there, boiling water, coaching me with steady words. Breathe, Sarah. Push when I say. Hours blurred, sweat and tears mixing, until finally, a cry filled the cabin. A boy, tiny and red-faced, with a tuft of dark hair like Jake's. I held him close, exhausted but overflowing with love. Harlan cleaned him up, wrapped him in soft hides, and for the first time, I saw tears in his eyes. He's perfect, he whispered, placing him in my arms. We named him Elias, after Harlan's grandfather. In that moment, the mountain man became more than my keeper. He was my partner, the one who'd seen me through hell. But survival didn't stop with birth. Elias fussed constantly those first weeks, and milk didn't come easy. Harlan helped where he could, rocking the baby while I rested, brewing herbal teas to help. We'd take turns watching him, and in the quiet hours, our bond deepened. One night, as Elias slept between us, Harlan kissed me, gentle, tentative, like he was afraid I'd pull away. I didn't. It felt right, born of shared hardship rather than fleeting passion. I didn't expect this, he admitted, but I'm glad. Me too. I realized. The punishment had twisted into something unexpected: a family. Spring thawed the snow, bringing floods that washed out trails. We rebuilt, Harlan teaching Elias, even as a babe, the sounds of birds, the feel of soil. I wrote letters to Dad, sealed but never sent, forgiving him in my heart. Word got back to town, somehow maybe a hunter Harlan traded with, and one day, Dad showed up, hat in hand, eyes downcast. I was wrong, he said, seeing Elias in my arms. Can you forgive an old fool? It took time. But yes. He helped us add to the cabin, brought supplies, even met Harlan properly. No more punishment, just reconciliation. Years passed like seasons. Elias grew sturdy, climbing trees and helping with chores. We had another child, a girl. Rosa conceived in love this time. Harlan softened, laughing more, carving toys for the kids. I found joy in the simple things, baking bread from our grain, watching sunsets paint the peaks gold. Jake. He faded to a memory last I heard. Head left town, chasing dreams that never stuck. But the mountain tested us again. A fire sparked by lightning swept the ridge one summer, flames licking close. We fought it with wet blankets and buckets from the stream. Kids safe inside. Neighbors from lower down came to help. Word of our little family had spread. We saved the cabin. Though scars remained on the land, it reminded me nothing's guaranteed up here. Elias turned 10, curious about his roots. I told him the truth gently about Jake. The pregnancy, Dad's decision. But Harlan's your pa, I said. The one who raised you. He nodded, hugging Harlan tight. Rosa, wild as the wind, dreamed of exploring beyond the mountain. We encouraged it, knowing the world waited. Dad passed peacefully one fall, leaving the family land to me. We visited often, blending town and wilderness. Harlan and I grew older, grey in our hairs, but our love endured strong as the oaks. Looking back, that drive up the road wasn't the end, it was a beginning. From punishment to purpose, given to a mountain man who gave me back myself. Now, as I sit on the porch with Harlan, watching the kids play, I know peace. The mountain whispers secrets, and I've learned them all. To fill the hour, let's linger on those middle years. After Rosa's birth, life hummed with activity. Mornings kids chasing chickens, Harlan fixing fences, me in the garden pulling weeds. Afternoons lessons by the fire reading from old books Harlan had, teaching math with stones, history through stories. One winter, illness struck. Elias coughed endlessly, fever high. Harlan trekked down for medicine, braving blizzards. He returned exhausted, but successful. Family first, he said. It bonded us deeper. Summers brought adventures, picnics by waterfalls, berry picking where bears roamed. Rosa found a fawn once. Orphaned, we nursed it, released it strong. Conflicts came, arguments over risks, like when Harlan hunted alone. But we talked, forgave, grew. Dad's visits increased, head telltales of my childhood, making kids laugh. Forgiveness healed old wounds. Elias left for school in town at 15, boarding with relatives. He thrived, but returned summers, helping expand the cabin. Rosa, artistic, painted mountain scenes. We sold them at markets, bringing incomes. Harlan and I celebrated anniversaries with quiet dinners, toasting to survival. Grandkids came later. Elias married a town girl, Rosa a fellow hiker. The cabin echoed with new laughter. In twilight years, we reflected. Thought I was punishing you, Dad had said once. But you found heaven. Indeed. From given to gifted, a life rich, raw, redeemed. The story's long, but every moment counts.